Hey guys, sorry about that. JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with another episode of Stoned As Adventures. And this episode's all about talking to the trees and gaining wisdom from nature. And sort of, when I say this, it's not so much that we're trying to have a directed conversation as to more of we are like putting ourselves into a mental state, i.e. when I'm in nature and it's quiet and ambient and I'm listening to the birds and, you know, just the natural sounds, my mind is at a much more relaxed sort of state. So thinking and critical thinking is much easier and problem solving is much easier. So, you know, it's sort of like what we're trying to do is do a ritualistic practice where we're putting ourselves, not artificially, but we're consciously putting ourselves into an environment that predominantly creates better results. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like, but there's many ways you can look at it. Like that's a more physical way to look at it, where we're looking at, you know, the biochemical responses and states and sort of trying to alter chemically our mindset. But we can also do it spiritually. So by me being in nature and realizing I am connected to all of this scenery or these trees or these plants or animals that are around me, even the insects, even the creepy crawlies, what happens is I put myself into a state to where I'm in an empowered or a heightened state. Just to, if I'm thinking in terms of, you know, the natural ambience and, you know, things like that, and the physical attributes, I can also look at the spiritual attributes. So like when I am connected to everything, I am getting energy from them, and I'm also giving out energy. So it's sort of like a way we can sort of recharge, which is, you know, just an added level or layer to life, which is really important, because when we live life only concerned about the physical, what happens is it becomes a shallow and empty sort of life. And when life becomes like that, it becomes, we become different people. We become more self-involved and focused only on self and self-interest and self-gain. Look at relationships and society and friendships. What's in it for me? That sort of culture. So what happens is when we sort of remove the spiritual aspect of life from our environment, we become disjointed or disconnected from others and from all of life itself. So why wouldn't I only think of what is in my best interests, even at the detriment of someone else? So it's through understanding this, is just, if we want to have better relationships and connections with those around us, we have to have forms of spiritual practice in our life so that we're sort of used to connecting with other, which is very important. Because essentially that's what a relationship is, you know, a spiritual and physical bond. You know, that's why we think of like true love, soulmates, all of this. because like that's what we're seeking, is the fulfillment of life. So when we're only stuck in the physical of life, we're getting the glass half full. When if we introduce spiritual practices and the spiritual in life and the physical, we get the glass full. So, you know, it's very important that we understand this, because this helps us in dealing better with other people in relationships, because we're not so much focused on just me, we're focused on me as a collective of my environment. So, you know, if my environment is negative, I am going to be negative. Like I can try my best to be positive, but if I'm putting myself in a highly negative environment, like it's only a matter of time before you get worn down. So think about it like negative relationships or toxic relationships. That's just sort of what's happened, is, you know, people have been in this negative situational cycle for so long that it just becomes comfortable to be that way. And that's not a good thing, because we're not, like when we're in those patterns, we're reactive, we're not proactive. So we're not choosing, you know, because who's going to choose to live a miserable life, pissed off at the world and pissed off at other people? Like, what's the point of that? It doesn't make sense. So an important thing to understand is that, like, in every moment we are choosing the meaning of life and the meaning of our life and the meaning of the outcomes and the situations that we're in. So like, if we view our life as being negative, it's because we're creating it to be negative. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you want positive, you've just got to create it to be positive. So the way I do it is the simplest way. You just see everything as a net gain. You punch me in the face, that's a net gain. Do you understand? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, no matter what happens to me, it's a net gain because I get the experience of it. So like, for example, if I break my leg and I have to crawl out of this forest, that's a net gain. I get to crawl out of this forest with a broken leg. Like, it's not something negative or something I'm afraid of, because I look forward to the challenge and experience. So to just understand this is that, like, it's not about how others treat us in life, it's about what do we want in life, and then we just pursue that. So like, for example, if we want to have a good relationship and a positive relationship, you know, and our ideal of the best relationship, then, you know, we have to take the actions and be that person every day. And if the other party doesn't want to be that person, then we got to let them go and look for that person, because there's no point if someone shows you that they don't want to be, you know, like aligned with the person who you want to be. But yeah. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, thanks.
That's good. But yeah, so like, that's an important thing, is that, like, when we're trying to be the ideal version of ourselves, we are not so much concerned about other people, because I can't control what someone else does, but I can control, like, how I react in the situation. I can control if I'm going to be a part of the situation. I can control if I'm going to accept the behavior in the situation. Like, I can't control what anyone else does, But everything within my control is just, what am I willing to accept and tolerate, and then what actions, like if we're a highly negative person, well, if someone says something to trigger me, I can say something to trigger them. Like it's this tit for tat. And it only, over time, if you look back into your life, into any conflicts, like these tit for tats only ever escalate over time. Now, some may escalate on a very, very long time sort of span in short increments, whereas others will, expand very rapidly, and situations just become sort of out of control really quickly. You know what I mean? But that sort of goes to the volatileness of the situation. So basically, how volatile and how many different variables can influence dramatic effects, and then how likely are those things to happen. For example, if someone, I thought that was a spider. If someone's been cheated on, you know what I mean? There's a lot more volatility around trust, because to the scale that someone was cheated on, like think of it like, going out and, your partner going out and getting drunk and just hooking up with someone because they were, in a good mood. And then the difference in a partner that had a long-term affair. So the one that had a long-term affair will do a lot more damage, because it brings into question all trust that was given. All those times where that person who was cheated on trusted and gave trust to the other party. So it's sort of like you have to go through and rebuild the fundamental frameworks of, one, how do you trust people? Two, how do you identify red flags? 3 would be, rebuilding your confidence in your decision making, because that's what happens when someone cheats, is there's that break of trust, but there's also that self-break of confidence. So, people who get cheated on sometimes fall into a cycle of, repetitive behaviors or repetitive cycles. And the reason for this is because, it's mostly when they refuse to identify their root in the problem, or their cause in the problem, by being in the situation. You know what I mean? It's sort of hard, because there's nothing you can do to, as the partner, to stop someone from cheating. If they make a decision, they're going to act on it. So it's sort of like, we can see that as a loss of them acting on it, as a loss of face on us, and we've lost something, and now we have to get it back. Or we can sort of see it as a loss of their character. Like they've shown us who they are. Like we honour our bonds, they do not. So that's an important thing, because there's nothing, I thought that was a spider as well. There's nothing that the party that doesn't cheat, or that is cheated on, can do prior to the event, unless the one that's cheating is either too obvious, or discloses their plans to third parties and things like that. So you know what I mean? It's not really a loss of face for the person who's cheated on, because if you trust someone and they decide to break your trust, that doesn't mean you're less of a person for trusting them. That means they're less of a person for not honouring your trust. You know what I mean? So like, you know, it's important to understand these distinctions, because these small distinctions and classifications are where a lot of perceived trauma come from. Jesus, something made a noise, and it was like at the 7 o'clock position, or the, I would say it was about the 3 o'clock position. No, 4 o'clock position. Like, and it's a natural blind spot. So like, because I have ADHD, like I'm hyper aware of everything that's around. So when I hear things in directions of vulnerability, my natural response is to become like very, very nervous. It's so funny. Because sometimes, like, to avoid, like, I'll notice a spider web a second before hitting it and just drop to the ground before hitting it. Yeah. It looks stupid sometimes, because sometimes it can be the reflection of light and stuff like that. But regardless, it's not that big of an issue. I've never really walked into a spider web, thank God. But yeah, so, but like I was saying, these definitions are very important, because the distinction between them is the distinction between something happening to me and someone doing something to me. Because there's a difference. Because when something happens to me, it's because of me. You know what I mean? When someone does something to me, it's because of their intentions. So that's an important thing, because a lot of us don't, and I was really bad for this for a long time, we don't differentiate. Like, whatever happens is happening to me. And the problem with this is I become the victim and cease to have any control or any ability to control any of the outcomes. I am subject to all outcomes that happen, you know what I mean? And no matter what I do, I won't be able to overcome it. Ah, you fucker. Ah. Shit scares the fuck out of me. I just walked through a spider web. You know how you can hear it breaking on your hair when you walk through? It's sort of like, yeah. Like, it's usually nothing. Like, usually it's just a spider going from one tree to another. But it's pretty nice out here. So, like, that's an important thing. But it's also important to understand, like, when something's happening to me, usually, like, I'm instigating those outcomes. So the problem with this is that, like, when I'm instigating the outcomes of being cheated on, that means everyone is going to cheat on me. So in any relationship moving forward, I have to have a level of security and control, but also a level of detachment, because I always knew they were going to cheat on me. If this sort of makes sense. So, like, the distinctions also alter, like, the reactions and the meaning we give to things. So, like, if I'm always going to be cheated on, well, I may as well, at the first sign of something being off, I detach. And what that leads to is becoming hyper focused for signs, and